Well, it was a marathon that played out before our eyes for the entire world to see. The United States had no Speaker of the House for 4 days after far-right members of the Republican Party essentially held Kevin McCarthy's coveted Speaker post hostage. Despite Republicans having a small majority, the group held out with 14 rounds of failed voting until they got all the concessions they wanted in the 15th round. It was nasty, y'all. It was contentious, and at one point, it even got a little world star-ish. But in the end, McCarthy finally got his House speakership. Some say at a cost that might be a bit high. But we also finally got to see the history in watching Hakeem Jeffries become House Minority Leader, the first African American in history to lead a congressional party. Shout out to Brooklyn. What's more, Hakeem Jeffries shut down the House with the most epic speech.
We passed the American Rescue Plan, saved the economy from a deep recession, put shots in arms, money in pockets, and kids back in school.
Jeffries' speech had everything you'd expect from a great American oration. There was passion, some Bible scripture.
Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up.
And even some ABC alliteration.
House Democrats will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the cult, democracy over demagogues, economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism.
But what's more important than Jeffries' incredible delivery and the historic nature of his election to this role is the actual substance of his message. Hakeem Jeffries actually listed off many of the things that Democrats had accomplished in the past 2 years, which frankly has been a messaging issue for the Democratic Party. Now, if you're fighting in Washington every day, but everyday people can't name what you've gotten done, that becomes a problem come election time. Jeffries says that the D in Democrat stands for deliver, and that should be a continued goal for the Democratic Party, to show the tangible impact that they are making and juxtapose it with any foolishness or childishness that may come from the other side of the aisle. Now, being the adult in the room isn't always fun, but as we learned from this recent gridlock, it matters to have some adults in the room. It's fair to say the Democratic Party needed and still needs some fresh blood at the top, new faces in charge, new energy, and it appears that Nancy Pelosi has passed the baton to just the right person to be a stable, sane, reasonable, but also no-nonsense face of the party. Expectations are high right now, and you know what? That's cool. Let's just take a moment to appreciate that, because the next 2 years are very likely going to be a hot mess of legislating with a divided GOP and just a divided government in general. Speaking of which, I also took some time to listen to Kevin McCarthy's speech, and while I personally found it a little bit drier, there were some notable points that you all should be aware of. Kevin McCarthy is intent on implementing the GOP's agenda of investigating the Biden administration. Let there be no doubt about that. They're also very focused on cutting spending and stopping what Kevin McCarthy called the woke indoctrination of children in schools. Not sure if that was at the top of your list for America's biggest problems right now, but fair to say it's not on mine. More legitimate issues like addressing the ongoing border crisis, those are also on the agenda too, and they make sense. But the how of all of this is yet to be seen. Kevin McCarthy had to concede so much to the Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boeberts of his party that the power struggle we saw just recently to get him elected may still slow down Congress if hardliners feel like shaking the table every time new legislation is introduced. Nobody wins with the party feuds or whatever Jay-Z said, but there is power in unity. So it might be worth asking the people who represent us, what's on your agenda for this year? And how do you intend to represent us better? Keep that in mind on Election Day. That's the point, isn't it? Thank you for being with us. As always, we hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you next time on theGrio Weekly.